Hey guys, Mike Helms here. I'm the firearms historian. I thought it'd be really fun today to do an unboxing of a Smith & Wesson, and I'm going to get to that in 1 second, but first I want to talk a little bit about something that can be kind of controversial among Smith & Wesson collectors. So this is a Model 60 Pro Series. It's actually one of my favorite Smith & Wessons that's ever been made. And I'm not just saying that. A Model 60 was actually the first Smith & Wesson I ever bought. That was over 20 years ago. I picked this one up a few years ago. This was one of the original Pro Series, so it's only chambered in 38 Special. The current ones are chambered now in 357. But this gun does have something that I want to mention, and I'm going to get a little bit closer here and point to it. And it's the dreaded lock. Yeah. So this story is pretty well known among Smith & Wesson collectors and fans and detractors. In the late 1990s, long story short, Smith & Wesson kind of cut a deal with the Clinton administration, and they decided they were going to do all sorts of safety things, and the lock was one of them. And the gun buying industry mounted a huge revolt against Smith & Wesson because of that. There was huge boycotts of the company. The company almost went out of business over it. And then there was a changing of guard in the company leadership, and they changed their message. But the lock has kind of hung on. So when you buy a Smith & Wesson revolver today, it's probably still going to come with the lock. Now there's probably a whole separate video post just to talk about sort of the complex politics behind that and why they may or may not be doing it now. But I did think that was a good introduction for this unboxing. And here's the box. Always fun to open a new blue box. And the gun that we're going to be talking about today is a 340 PD. What do you see? What do you not see? No lock. You know, this is one of very few revolvers that Smith & Wesson makes that doesn't have a lock. Now, why they chose these revolvers, here's my guess. So this 340 PD is based on a gun that was originally called the Centennial. That was released, I believe, in the 1960s. And the Centennial kind of had this hump back here. Of course, it's an internal hammer only, which means that you can only fire this gun in double action. There's no external hammer to cock back, so you can fire it in single action. So you have to fire the Centennial in double action. And of course, double action triggers are fairly heavy. So I think Smith & Wesson thought that that was enough of a safety on its own that you wouldn't just kind of inadvertently bump the trigger and make it fire. So the Centennial is currently the only gun that Smith & Wesson offers without a lock. Now, you actually can get a lock version of this gun. Otherwise, it's exactly the same gun, but it'll have the lock there. But I decided I wanted to review a non-lock model. There's a couple other slightly different versions of this gun that you can also get without a lock. This is the kind of super ultra light, or I think as Smith & Wesson calls it, the air light version. And what that means is the frame is made out of a very light material. It's a scandium alloy. I think it's actually, the base metal is aluminum, but then there's some scandium alloyed in it. It makes the frame very strong. The cylinder is made out of titanium. And this gun is actually rated for 357. Now I'm going to be taking this out and shooting it and doing another video of that. And I imagine this is going to be a pretty uncomfortable gun to shoot in 357, but the gun will withstand that. And the reason it would be such an uncomfortable gun is this gun is just incredibly light. You want to see how light it is? I am going to set it here on this scale, and you can see that it settles in at about 11¾ ounces. That is super light. And the really cool thing is, even with 5 rounds of 357 Magnum ammunition in it, it still weighs less than a pound. Now, in comparison, this Model 60 revolver, which is completely done in stainless steel, now it has a slightly longer barrel. I don't know that it adds that much weight to it. This gun's going to weigh in at about 22 ounces, so it's almost twice as heavy as the 340 PD. Now, the cool thing with unboxing a gun like this is there's actually not that much else left in the box. There's the protective bag that the gun comes in. Of course, there's the instruction manual and the warranty papers. And the federal government makes all gun companies ship their guns now with a lock. And I imagine a lot of these locks stay in these bags, and that's fine. Of course, I always encourage people to make sure that you're storing your guns safely, hopefully with a gun safe, because those locks are pretty easy to cut off. But that's everything that's in the box with this. And if I open the cylinder, there's this little red plastic protector over the back of the cylinder. Of course, that just comes off, and then you have the gun. Super lightweight, rated for .357 Magnum, which means you could also shoot .38 Special in it. Really looking forward to getting this gun out to the range. Stay with me, I'll be doing that review this weekend, and wish me luck with the .357, because I have a feeling that's gonna hurt.